Good day, dear audience. Thank you for being here. I am Hadil Zawahri, the Prime Minister of the Affirmative Team, and our team believes in the motion that the rise of the right-wing populism in Europe will escalate the conflict in the Arab region. First, allow me to define a couple of terms that we will be using so that you could keep up with our arguments, and then we will be providing you with our arguments. I will talk about the policy of anti-immigration that is fully supported by the right wing, and then the Deputy of the Prime Minister, my colleague Mohammed, will talk about the economical argument and the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. And then the next team will be providing arguments and summarizing our stand. Beginning with the definitions. The right wing is a political ideology based on a couple of principles, including laissez-faire, which is the economic system in which transactions between private parties are free from the government intervention. Secondly, the ethnocentrism, which is judging another culture but solely by values and standards of one's own culture, anti-globalization, anti-elitism, protectionism, and the opposition to immigration, which is fully known to the right wing. Such as the Freedom Party of Austria, the Vlaams Blok from Belgium, the National Front of France, Alt4 of Germany, and etc. Secondly, conflicts of the Arab world. A conflict is a state of open, prolonged fighting or war. And here, sadly, we have plenty of them. We have the Yemeni crisis, we have the Syrian civil war, we have the Iraqi war, and the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Because we don't have enough time to provide you with a number of arguments, I will focus on the policy of anti-immigration that the right wing supports and promotes, and how this would escalate conflicts in the Arab region. So, prohibiting immigrants from fleeing war in their countries, from saving their lives, from saving their families' lives, and getting the chance to build a very good life and contributing to economies and contributing to other countries and contributing to themselves will help their governments who are already violating their rights, oppressing them, killing and jailing them, do all of that again. And all of that by increasing their power and their control. And because humans will always fight for their rights, they will always fight for their lives and for their freedom, they will always stand up against everyone who opposes them again and again, giving a chance of other countries to use them, as what happened in the Syrian and Yemeni civil wars, to use them in fulfilling their destructive plans that is more and more of uprising conflicts. We're not asking the European Union to be the shelter of refugees. We're not considering the fact that it should always help in giving the solution to what is happening in the Arab region. But we are considering the fact that without their help, things will always get worse. Also, refugees who get the chance to talk about what is really happening in their countries, how oppressed and persecuted they are, how the governments are using them, and how they are oppressing them, and they're violating their rights, will always help them reach their communities' they will always help them reach their voices to other communities. They will advocate it, and with the help of Eastern communities, they will pressure on their governments to stop the war and protect lives of other countries. Multiple famous names of Syrian activists, lawyers, filmmakers, political refugees have contributed and still contributing to save their countries through filmmaking, through giving speeches, through talking about what is really happening in... Please.
Please tell me, how did the economy not change drastically with the immigration, with the number of population increasing because of immigrants in European countries?
My colleague will talk about the economical part of the Syrian crisis, or the part of the of immigrants fleeing to other countries. Again, I will repeat the idea that multiple famous names of Syrian activists, lawyers, filmmakers, political refugees have contributed and still contributing to save their countries and to save their families and to help them reach their voices to other people through accepting them in communities, which are the Western communities, and guaranteeing them with the right to express themselves and to talk about what is happening, and to talk about how their governments are oppressing and using them. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the honorable panelists, fellow colleagues from both government and opposition teams, ladies and gentlemen of the crowd. As leader of opposition, I would like to welcome you all to this debate where we have come today to stand before you completely disagreeing with the House's motion that says this House believes that the rise of the right-wing populists will escalate the conflicts in the Arab regions. Well, first of all, I will discuss about my duties and my team's strategies, and then I will continue to talk about my arguments. However, I must make a significant motion. The Prime Minister have talked about how the governments will stand in the way of the immigrants to reach the countries in order to make their voices more hearable. I will let the case of immigrations to be discussed by the Deputy Prime Minister. However, I must comment on one thing. The rise of the populism, the rise of the right-wing populism only happened because the people have this ideology. The rise of the right-wing populism, as I will describe it, comes from the escalation in the right-wing ideology of the people. How are you saying that people and from Western communities will actually accept the immigrants while they share their leaders' same ideologies? My duties as the leader of oppositions are as follows. First, I will elaborate the motion more by explaining its significant terminologies. Then I will start to construct the opposition's case by demonstrating two significant main arguments. The first, the inclination of the right wing towards internal affairs might decrease the conflicts in the Arab region. Second, the us versus them policy and the us versus them mentality of the right wing could finally be able to reconstruct the broken bridges, the fallen bridges between Arabs and restore long lost sense of Arab unity. Thank you. Right-wing populism, I will begin by, the deputy leader of opposition will strengthen the case by proving that anti-intervention foreign policies and the right wing's belief in isolation could actually decrease the conflicts in the Arab region. I will start by expressing the terminologies right-wing populism, just as the Prime Minister described it. They believe in ethno-centralization, they believe in isolation, they believe in conservatism and traditionalism, they support a nation's solitude, and they sustain an anti-intervention foreign policy. They spread the concept of us versus them. They spread the concept and they believe in white supremacy. And they're quite Euroscepticism. They are against the European nation. As far for the conflicts, yes, I do agree. Yes, we are seeing man-to-man conflicts. She made the point quite clear. However, I must start with my arguments. The conflicts in the Arab region have actually surged during the reign of left-wing parties in Europe. Left-wing parties are pro-intervention and have always interfered with the affairs of the Arab region. This interference had led to the birth of many terrorist groups, such as Al-Qaeda, such as ISIS, these groups who were the main cause of conflicts in the Arab region. No one can deny that. The right wing is quite the opposite of the left wing and does not hold the same policies as the left wing. The right wing is more focused on its interior affairs. The right wing cares more about its nations. They care more about developing their nations, about making their nations better countries. They are nationalists. They believe in independence and in isolation. So these nationalists who dream of better futures to their nations, they would shift all of their attention from the exterior to the interior. Not intentionally, of course. We cannot assume that, wow, they have a good intention towards us, but only because their countries hold top priority. This decreases the intervention in the Middle East and hence would possibly decrease the conflicts. My second point is that the right wing claiming to be a representative of the common man demonstrates the us versus them mentality. They tend to separate us based on the ethno-centralization, that the centralism that the Prime Minister spoke of. They separate people and they segregate us based on four main things: race, color, religion, and ethnicity, ethnic backgrounds. So in this separation and in this segregation, we are often targeted. We are placed, we are discriminated, Arabs and Muslims in particular. However, ladies and gentlemen, to every action, there will be an opposite reaction, equal in strength. How does the Prime Minister and the government team came here today to be completely prophetic about the reactions and about the actions and the consequences? This actually may lead to the people uniting to fight back against the common enemy, against the right wing. This is possible to happen, and thank you all.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Thank you so much for attending this exceptional debate, the first champion debate in English in Jordan. This is Mohammed Zioud. I'm the deputy of the Prime Minister in the affirmative team that totally supported the motion. We are debating on that. This council believes that the rise of the right-wing populism in Europe will escalate. It will rapidly escalate the conflict in the Arab region. First of all, before introducing our argument to strengthen our point of view, I want to rebuttal what just mentioned by the Prime Minister. But when she said the right wing is completely separated about the conflict in the Arab region. Okay, Mr. Opposition Leader, sorry. Could you justify the chaos that happened in Algeria after Mrs. Marine Le Pen? Marine Le Pen, by the way, is the head of the national right wing in France. Could you justify the chaos that happened in Algeria after she's speeches and she's statement about when she said the occupation of France in Algeria gave me and French and Algerian citizens a lot of experience and benefit. After that, the Algerian activists called for demonstration, go to street, and ask for a formal apology from the French government. Nothing happened, and we faced 3 days of terror in France. Another story to rebuttal what just mentioned by her. Another story, Matteo Salvini. I think all of us know Matteo Salvini. By the way, Matteo Salvini is the head of the North Italy Party, and the North Italy Party is the most important right-wing party in Italy. Matteo Salvini stated that the presence of the Arab in Italy will lead to economic, moral, social, political deterioration in the Arab in Italy. Could you please link between these speeches and your point of view as the opposition leader? I don't think so. My rebuttal is over. I will start with my argument. I will transfer to my argument. As a Prime Minister mentioned, I have two arguments. The first one will talk about, I will discuss the interaction of the right-wing populism in the Arab region, and the second one will what the deputy of the opposition leader asked about. It's the economic, how the right-wing escalate the conflict in the Arab region by the economical plans. My first argument is the right-wing populism. All of us know that the right-wing populism support all of the conflict happened in the Arab region, especially that's happened between two sides. One of them is already supported by a great powers such as USA, and the other one is so weak. This is what exactly happened in Palestinian-Israeli conflict, where the right-wing populism in Europe make a unmeasured and very negative support for the Israeli violation against Palestinian settlement building support, killing innocent supporting. And this, of course, will escalate rapidly the violation and the conflict in the Arab region. My second argument, it's so clear. I will talk now about economic argument. Please pay attention with me because you asked about it before. It's so clear that the European countries where right-wing took over regime set a specific economic policies for those Arab countries that followed them economically. I mean by followed them economically by borrows, because all of us know that when a European country give an Arab country a borrow, she will struggle it by and she will determine how to spend this borrow. And this country pushed them to follow these policies, which was the greatest reason in Arab economic deterioration, which leading to escalating the chaos in the Arab region. Furthermore, Arab Spring Revolution was a direct result of failure of right-wing parties in dealing with Arab issues. These parties give a promise after Oslo Agreement, if you remember. I think all of us have to remember because it's a very critical issue. After Oslo Agreement to resolve a Palestinian-Israeli conflict and to achieve economic prosperity, and now after many decades nothing happened, nothing realized, and this will lead to deterioration of the legitimacy of the Arab region cooperated with the European, and this escalated the conflict in the Arab region. Furthermore, we have a lot of evidence that support our point of view, but there is no time to mention all of them. We have Charlie de Gaulle bombing and the amount of hated speech generated after each bombing against Muslim and Arab worldwide. After President Donald Trump passed the election in America, all of European committee was asked their people to follow the American citizen. Finally, these arguments, beside what I had mentioned, I think this is how we can justify our team position as a supporter of this council motion, that we fully supported that the right wing in Europe is escalated rapidly the conflict in our region. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, our panelists, our educators, ladies and gentlemen, my colleagues from both the opposition and the government, good morning. I'm the deputy leader of the opposition, and this House believes that the rise of the right-wing populism will escalate the conflicts in the Arab region. I must wonder if the government team was referring to Plato's Utopia or was referring to Europe. We asked him about the economic situation in Europe, and he couldn't elaborate how the economic situation would deteriorate or would become, in a worst case, if the increasement of immigration. Also, the government team wasn't aware of how short-sighted his vision was. He addressed all the matters for a short term of time. And I begin, ladies and gentlemen, by going over some of the core principles of the right wing that the government seemed to overlook. And if we were to describe the right wing, we would have to describe it in scientific terms, into scientific terminology. And for that, I shall be quoting the writes of Professor Ruth Woodcock, a professor of political sciences, where she elaborates in her book, The Right-Wing Populism in Europe, Politics and Discourse, a brief anatomy of the right wing. And the following points are mentioned. The right is a philosophy that values peace among the various nations of the world and opposes wars to impose the values of one nation upon the other, as well as efforts to exterminate individual nations through war, genocide, immigration, and genetic assimilation. The right is openly and avowedly nationalist. We agree on that. It supports that all nationalisms and rights of all nations exist homogeneous, yet unadulterated by foreign invasion and immigration, and the right is anti-globalist and opposes all groups who work for globalist ideals or globalist objectives. So what do we conclude from these core principles, ladies and gentlemen? Thank you. Please. So what do we conclude from these principles, ladies and gentlemen? We conclude the isolated foreign mentality of the right wing, which means that the right wing is not interested in intruding in any of the affairs of any country. And why would they? Why would the right wing be interested? It would be awkward to think that the right wing would be interested, after mentioning the previous principles, in intruding in any matters in the Arab region. So why would the right kick over the beehive if the bees would fly into its house? In chaos theory, ladies and gentlemen, there's a theory that says that's applied to politics and mathematics. It's called the butterfly effect, and it suggests that a sensitive dependence on initial conditions in which a small change in one state of a system can result in a different large state.
Point of information, please.
Thank you. And this concept, ladies and gentlemen, can be applied quite explicitly on the argument we're discussing. We are, after all, relatively neighbors of Europe, and we have a strong resemblance to the beehive when it comes to our numbers. So would it be extremely unreasonable for our neighbors to provoke anything that would cause us to fly into their homes? Of course, we can't forget also the promises that were made by the right wing so it could reach its position of power. The right wing made promises of saving the suffering European economy and restore its greatness and grandeur. Yet it's definitely impossible if immigration didn't stop and population wasn't reduced. So in the light of these principles, we have to understand it would be an uneducated guess from the government team to think that the rise of the right wing would cause or initiate any escalation of conflicts in the Arab region. And ladies and gentlemen, if we have to take one thing as a fact when addressing the right wing, that the only thing that they have to offer at the moment is their principles. The right wing has been criticized for giving promises that are not rationalized, and have been criticized of giving a vision that's unattainable. So if we were to judge them today, we can only judge them upon their principles that will determine their future foreign policy. So the rise of the right will deal with any conflict, not only in the Arab region, but in the world, with a way that implements their principles of isolation and living in their wonderland of independence. And who knows? Maybe the right wing will figure another solution to the refugees' dilemma. The only thing we know at the moment.
Point of information, please.
Thank you. The only thing we know at the moment, that the right wing is not willing to take any more immigrants. And what we definitely know, that the right wing will not be the butterfly to change the wind in the Arab region. Thank you.
By the name of Allah, the most compassionate and merciful, Munal Husseini. Okay, first I'm going to talk about what my friends or colleagues said. Like first, I'm going to talk about the leadership of the opposition. You said that why should we accept immigrants? Of course, you should accept immigrants because they play a big role in these catastrophes, which is happening in the Arab world. Like why? Like they should stop using us as resources. Do you know what's the main problem in this thing? That you see us, Arab world, as consumers, not as producers. You don't see Arabs as Arabs. You see them as people who are uneducated and they just want to destroy countries and don't develop it. Here's the problem. Well, you should take some of us because you cause things that is happening. And then she mentioned that, why our technology, like you said that, why you should be isolated? Well, we are in a period of technology. You shouldn't be isolated anymore.
Point of information.
Please. You shouldn't be isolated anymore. Why? Because we are in a small world with technology, internet, social media. We should be together, all together. Isolated? Are you talking about isolation? No, we're not isolated. If you want to be isolated, get out from our resources. Now I'm going to talk about my arguments. Please. Of course, about this statement, of course, I'm with it 100% because the rights region or the right wing will make a big conflict in the Arab world. How? Well, because they are against Islam and Muslims, and which is obvious. It is obvious. So if they charge Europe, they will expel Muslims from Europe and prevent them from reaching Europe, in addition to contempt and destroy Muslims' rights in Europe. Okay? Here's the problem. Well, have you ever seen the number of demonstrators who are against Arab in Europe? Well, they are more than 100,000. Okay, they are more and more. And those presidential candidates who are playing a big role in convincing the citizens about being against us, which is increasing more and more. Now, I'm going to say that Europe is afraid from people who are already afraid from their home and who are facing a definite death. Actually, Europe and the West are the most responsible about a part of the humanism catastrophe which has happened in Libya and Syria. Well, according to the French presidential candidates like Marine Le Pen, which she said in the European Parliament, she named her enemy. She said that if you are afraid to name your enemy, then you can't find them. And she added, terrorism is not the one who does the killing. Muslims are taking terrorism as an excuse. She just directly mentioned us as enemies. Can you see that? She mentioned us directly? No, please. As enemies, okay? Let's see here. I will give you some evidences about this. They are making the right wing are making some effects on our world, which has some of them appeared, and some of them are like a time bomb, which will appear by time. The first thing is this, I'm going to agree with Hadil, what Hadil said, about the Washington and the critical support for Tel Aviv, the Israel. Well, all of us know that the main enemy of Islam and Arabs is Israel. Well, Donald Trump, when he said, when he wrote on his Twitter page that be strong, he added, the beginning was with the nuclear agreement, and now it's with the USA. Be strong, Israel. 20th January is coming. And then the Prime Minister of Israel responded by saying, thank you for your friendship support to Israel. Well, I think that it is obvious, and of course, Donald Trump is supporting our enemy who has always been our Israel. He is supporting them, but in an indirect way, he is against us. So I think that if the right wing If the right wing takes the charge in Europe, I think, or like I believe that of course it will be the end of the Arab world as well as Europe, as we know. And thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, jury members, my colleagues from the government team, our generous audience, peace be upon you all, and good afternoon. I am Maram Abu Shawarib, and I am the member of the opposition. I would like to insist on my team's stand from the motion that says, this House believes that the rise of right-wing populism in Europe will escalate the conflict in the Arab region. First of all, I would like to ask the other team some questions about what they last said. Now, isolation is about the principle of the right wings, which means that they believe in the unity of their respective nation. Right wings were not in power when all of the conflict of Oslo happened, so how what you have mentioned is actually irrelevant. Second of all, and actually the government team, please later, the government team, third speaker for, thank you, I thank you for supporting our position so far. And last but not least, we are discussing Europe, not the States. So, and now I want to start my arguments. Now, we all know that the right-wing parties in Europe have been on rise since the early 2010 due to austerity measures and immigration as main factors. And that's what experts like Ruth Wodak, the founding editor, together with Paul Kilton of the book series Discussion Approaches to Politics, Society and Cultures, ensures. Now, allow me please to explain for you austerity measures in order to have a solid ground for my argument. Austerity is a set of economic policies imposed on economies, such as A, cutting the state's budget to stabilize public finance, B, restore competitiveness through wage cuts, and C, create better investment expectations by lowering future tax burdens. Now, usually, policies grouped under the term of austerity measures may include spending cuts, tax increases, or a mixture of both. And we all know that such measures means high prices, but also low salaries compared to that high prices. All of this makes people angry. In most macroeconomic models, austerity measures generally increase unemployment. Meanwhile, tax increases reduce household disposable income. And from this point, ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you that these measures not only applied in the European continent, it's also applied in our Arabian region. Later, please, I have a lot to say. Okay, not only in the European countries, but also in the Arabian countries. And it is the main reason of the conflict in the Arab region, and the proof can be found if we went a little bit back in time. Since the Arab Revolution that took place since the beginning of 2012 was caused by the anger of people towards their governments because their government was applying the austerity measures. So people didn't have any chance of a good and welfare life. So please keep in mind that fact says that the absence of wise governments is the reason of conflict and is the answer of why the conflict would escalate in the Arab region. So right-wing rise has nothing to deal with escalating the conflict. So why we should blame others on our mistakes? Please do not make any false and fake justifications just to cover your corruption. Now, moving to my second argument, I previously said that the immigration and refugees crisis...
Point of information.
Later, please. Refugee crisis, which the revolutions of the Arabian Spring caused from the beginning, is the main reason of the rise of the right wing. Now, let me please do a small brainstorming process. If I have a right-wing party that gained their popularity as a result of the people's demands to fight delegations of immigrants to their countries from the Arab region. And these immigrants are refugees from the Arab countries as a result of conflicts that caused by revolutions. Then, this means that the right-wing party is required to end those delegations in order not to lose the confidence of people and thus lose popularity. And because of the presence of international determination, European countries forcing European countries forcing them to open their borders for refugees, then right-wing parties are left with no choice but to try to solve the conflict in the Arab region, not to inflame it. And thank you very much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, my dear colleagues, and thank you. Okay. First of all, I'm gonna confirm what my colleague said. You actually pointed out that it's kind of it is irrelevant to talk about isolation. Well, actually, it's not about only Europe. Our topic today is about the conflicts or the interactions of the right wing in the Arab world. That's one of the things. But you are not actually discussing that. All what you are discussing is what are the principles or what the right wing is willing to do. Well, actually, you forgot to mention one thing. How, when my colleague said about Europe, about exactly Donald Trump, actually when Donald Trump and Mariana Le Pen take the lead in the right wing or in the world, they will destroy the Arab world. How? When my colleague Muna said, wait, I'm sorry. Okay. When my colleague Muna said about the immigration and about the isolation, when my colleague said, how you gonna actually, okay, I'm sorry. Okay, and first of all, I'm gonna, don't accept immigration, and they don't see Arabs as Arabs. They see us as enemies. That's what she said. And Mariana Le Pen, when she stood up and said, you can't fight your enemies if you can't name them. How you're supposed to define us as enemies? How you are supporting and how you are defending people who sees us as your enemy? They see you as your first enemy. That's what Maimuna said. And a couple, excuse me, and a couple of terms. Okay, I'm sorry. And when the Prime Minister stood up and said a couple of terms about the economical arguments and the policy of immigration about Israel, and the right wing is judging freedom rights, conflicts in the Arab world, and Israel, Syrian, Israeli, and Palestine. It always has been going on since ages, since history, and now it's spreading. It's spreading in a way that everyone in the excuse me. Everyone in the Arab, they have leaders, they have relations in the Arab world that even the right wing, that the Arabs, they want to shutter in refugees. They want to shutter refugees who are trying to get homes. When they actually put us in one point and try to take our resources and try to take our powers, they will put us in one point and they will attack us in one another. Point of information. Sorry again. If the European countries where the right wing took one region, they sought a specific as the Deputy Prime Minister said. That's the first. The second argument, and when he said the right wing populism support all of the conflicts that European in the Arab region, especially there's two sides of them, and already supported by great power on the other side. It is too weak. This is what exactly happened in Palestine, Israeli conflict, where the right-wing populism in Europe make negative and support Israel against Palestine, against people who is trying to get homes, against people who is trying to stay at their homes and be safe. How they want isolation, they want to stop. They want to stop immigration and and they want to destroy us. If let them stop immigration. Let them actually be isolated. We don't mind, but leave us alone. They're not leaving us alone. All what they care about is seeing our resources, taking our resources. And that's what my colleague have been saying all along, that these people all what they lead, what they're thinking about is destroying us. They see us as enemies. We are Arabs. We are Muslims. That's how they don't see us as Muslims, as Arabs. They see us as terrorists. They see us as terrorists who always does the killing for them. How you are supporting these people? How you are supporting people who will stop immigration, who will stop everything that you have been doing, and everything that will stop developing? We will let you down and put you down always, and say that no, we are helping them. We stop immigration. We want to be safe. We want to rise our economy again. But if they stop and rise the economy, how you gonna say that? Sorry. Okay, thank you.
Should I start? Oh, okay. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to this marvelous debate. I'd like to thank the preposition team for such a marvelous debate that we can easily refute and rebuttal, and this will be an easy job for me. I am Omar Lamouche, the whip of opposition, and I am here today to support my teammates and stand by our belief that the rise in right-wing populism in Europe will not, absolutely not, escalate the conflict in the Arab region. Not only that, it also doesn't have any effect in escalating the conflict in Europe, plus it doesn't want to have any effect. So, my duties as the opposition whip is to show clash points, show how our arguments were stronger, more important, more impactful to the timeline of this debate, thus better analyzed. So I shall start by refuting and talking about the Prime Minister's speech. They said how the right wing is anti-immigration. Of course they are anti-immigration, and I'll explain that later on in my speech. I also want to say that they said that they're anti-immigrations. But do you know, in 2015, in a nutshell, .org did a survey, and they wrote down that the Arab Gulf nations as a whole have not accepted... Point of information, please. No, thank you. I'll take it later. Have not accepted any refugees, exactly 0 refugees from the Syrian crisis, refugee crisis that started roughly 7 years ago. Also, the leader of opposition, they said that the rise of the right-wing populism will internally... sorry, this is for my teammate, the leader of opposition. She said that the rise of right-wing populism will internally make their country better, where they care about their country way more than to interfere with us as foreign nations.
Please.
Please, I'll take you later. She also talked about the us versus them policies. Okay, and they had a point of information, this is a clash point, where they said that the government is in the way of the voices of the people, where my colleague, the deputy opposition, totally refuted it. Now, going to the deputy prime minister, they said that right-wing populism supports all conflicts in the Arab region. Sorry, is this even an argument? You brought up events that happened, and you didn't really explain their connection with each other.
Point of information, please.
Please go ahead.
How come you're saying that this is an argument? Well, actually, this is an argument, because when the right wing is interacting
Please,
with Israel.
15 minutes, 15 seconds have finished, and I can't answer you due to the fact that I didn't understand anything. Anyways, I shall continue. Deputy Leader of Opposition. My
Point of information, please.
No, thank you. 15 seconds, please. Respect the rules. My deputy leader of opposition, he showed the correct definition of right-wing populism. I also support how he showed how the right-wing ideology is against interfering in other nations. They want to fix what's inside in their countries. Why should they start interfering with us? We have nothing to do with them. Why should they start with us? And I was still waiting for a refute or rebuttal from the government group team. Now, going to the member of government, I talked how they talked about how the European nations should accept refugees. Again, 0 refugees accepted from the Gulf nations. They are our brothers, our Arab brothers, and they didn't accept any of us. How do you expect European nations, foreign nations to us, the Arabs, to accept refugees while we don't accept 1 refugee from the Syrian conflict? No, thank you. The time has finished. Of course, this is from inanutshell.org 2015. I shall skip to the last thing. The government whip. This is very perfect. She claims that they will destroy us as Arabs. Look, you said that they consider us enemies. Why shouldn't they? When we as Arab keep on cursing them, hating them, me personally, I have never rode a cab. What? No, the time doesn't allow. I have never ridden a cab in Jordan and opened a political argument with the driver, and he hasn't cursed or hated the European nations. And thank you very much.